Greetings, Go players! In Sente here, YouTube channel dedicated specifically to beginner and intermediate players to help them get better at the game. So I had an awesome video planned for you guys. Last week I had played the teaching game with none other than Dwyrin. If you guys haven't heard of him, I'm sure most of you have. He's one of the best internet Go players around. Consistently has really great videos, tutorial videos, and games. And I actually have links to his channel description below. So if you haven't heard of him, definitely check him out. He's great. And so I got in touch with him, being a rising, ambitious YouTuber myself, asking if we could play a teaching game. And to my delight, he responded, and we played an awesome game of Go that I want to share with you today. Originally, he was also with us for a review, and I had got him on Skype, and he was able to really explain the faults in the game and what I could work on to improve. And he explained it in a great way. Unfortunately, my OBS settings were wrong, and while my voice was really loud, his voice you could barely hear. Long story short, I couldn't use the footage, but I will try my best to recap what he said, go through our game, and give you 3 tips, 3 lessons that can really supercharge your game if you're getting into sort of the single-digit Q level. So let's go through this game, shall we? Alright, so the game started off normal enough. Decided to play the Orthodox. And, of course, the correct way is to, if you're white and black starts to make the Orthodox framework, you would rather break that framework up early. So either play here, or play here, something along those lines. Up here, to sort of disrupt the moyo that he wants to make. And so he decided to do with the Knight's move. So I was recently playing around with trying to build influence. I enjoyed the idea of having a big wall and attacking stuff with it. Don't we all? And so I purposely played a large Knight's move here, thinking if he invades, I'll get a really strong wall. Seemed reasonable in my head, right? Interestingly enough, though, trying to force a wall and deliberately say, I'm going to build this wall here, and do it in Gote, gives your opponent a lot of time to mitigate the effectiveness of that wall. And Dwyrin showed us that in a very, very simple way. So he played the 3-3 invasion, which of course you'd want to split up, right? After playing the normal Joseki, that happens. Right? Sending down here and here. In this situation, this is a Gote connection, right? Because I needed to sort of stay connected to this group. You know, if I Tanuki'd somewhere, this doesn't look great. This is putting a lot of pressure on these stones and a lot of pressure on these stones, while these are relatively fine. So we can't have that. So bottom line is I had to build my wall in Gote, which gave him the time that he needed to completely nullify the effectiveness of the wall that I made. And because I tried to build a wall in Gote, instead of letting it be either a Sente play or happen naturally from attacking something else, he was able to completely mitigate its effectiveness. Because now you see, sure, like I could attack these 2 stones, but this wall can't profit nearly as much as I would have liked. White made a solid 10 to 12 points here, and the side that black was trying to build up with this Orthodox opening isn't really working that well anymore. I was thinking that attacking this formation would be good enough compensation for me, but after black plays here and I play this slow move, we can see that white's relatively fine, and this black group is under honestly a lot of trouble. If white gets a move here, something around this side of the board, before I have a chance to strengthen it, then this is going to be really tough for black to get a good position, because white can chase this stupid heavy group around and build strength. So way back from here, when I thought to myself, I want to build a wall, I didn't check to see if he would be able to mitigate its effectiveness. And I think that's something a lot of intermediate players would struggle with, you know. They first get the taste of being able to attack with the wall and attack with influence, and they love it. And so they try to just make it. But they don't make it in such a way, sometimes, they don't make it in a way that will actually get the job done. And we see very simple counterattack and very simple moves here that actually really showed how simple moves can be extremely effective in taking advantage of a position. And so that's the first lesson that I want to totally talk to you guys about, was when you're trying to make a wall, if you can make it in Sente, that's awesome. But also try to think about, you know, what your wall is going to be doing. If you make a wall and you let your opponent just have an okay group right next to it, not great. I mean, black can try to do stuff, but you know, black would have to, I guess, do that. It's black's best bet. Now white can jump down here, and here, and here, and white doesn't have an eye yet, but I mean, white's broken out, and so white doesn't really have to worry about this group that much. And you know, even if black would do something like this, you know, there's still Aji. There's still a lot of Aji here. You know, white does this and then goes this. Like, what's this black group gonna do now? So that has to jump out. And now white's group can jump out. And so now we see white attacking this other black formation, right? So black would probably want to take some move over here. Now let's say black goes back and tries to capture this, then white can turn. And black needs to sort of not keep this ladder going, right? And then just throwing out some random moves here, you know. White's out towards the center. Black needs to worry about this now, which means it'll probably need to jump out one more time. And white can grab this point, and all of a sudden this black group is not looking so hot. Even if white wanted to just keep pressuring this group, that's very reasonable. And then once black's group keeps running, white can start, you know, using that strength to build on the right and the left. But the bottom line is, white has enough open area here to be able to take any attack that black tries to make and sort of reverse it, you know, provided that he plays the right moves, because this is a fairly strong shape that white has. So think about your walls. Think about why you're making your wall, and think about what's actually going to come from that, lest you find yourself in the somewhat weird position of thinking that you did something good when it was not. And so that's the tip number one that I got from this game. So let's go on. So I was doing that, and now he grabs the crucial point that we just talked about, right? Oh no, that wasn't. That was me saying that was a crucial point. Okay, this is the regular game. So he decided to just take more points and enclose a corner. In his mind, this game is already very tough for black. And I guess he was trying to see what I would do with this side. And right when he played this move, I realized that I've got to do something with this wall. I realized immediately that this was not very helpful. And so I had to try to find some offensive way of like making use of it. So I decided to try to approach here with the idea of maybe trying to build up the right side. I've already got a stone here, so maybe, you know. He simply backed off. I went in the corner. He did that. And I'm like, okay, these guys are still really weak. I can make some... Making a silly low move like this would be like very over-concentrated. Honestly, it might have been the best move. We were talking, and he's like, that might be the best move that you got, but it's extremely passive. And if black does this, you know, it's giving white free reign to really attack whatever else on the board that he wants. And black stones, yeah, are pretty over-concentrated. And once again, the wall is next to useless. So I was trying to go a little bit bigger than that, and sort of try to surround on a little bit of a larger scale. Of course, Dwyrin decided to nullify that plan. And so now I'm like, okay, maybe I can attack this lone white stone and strengthen both groups. This is really my only chance, right? The game is getting pretty tough, all because this wall is useless and it's a weight. Like, it's just something I have to carry with me and think about all the time. Whereas bat stones are pretty well settled. He doesn't have to really think a lot about protecting all these things. I do. So if I don't respond to this, if I Tanuki somewhere, you know, he's gonna really, really start hurting my group. He could do something simple like this, Maybe do something like this. That's probably not the best. But removing the base from here and slowly starting to surround this is pretty tough. But if I do respond, then his stone's going to get stronger, which is exactly what happened. I didn't want to respond here and allow him to Hane at the head of 2 stones, but in hindsight, that was probably the best option for me. Here, here, and here, maybe just get an eye, get something, and then worry about this group. But then this group is pretty, isn't looking too hot right now. White can play a simple move like this, and start to enclose and build that way. So once again, this wall is just a thorn in my side, right? And so here I am, I'm trying to like offensively use it, offensively try to take his stones away. And now I'm trying to attack from both sides at once and try to strengthen both groups at once because they're both weak at this point. So I have to try to do something, right? I probably, in hindsight, we were talking, he said that I should have simply just Haned and just driven a solid wedge in between this and this, and then worked on this group to make sure that this was like okay. But this is another classic case of trying to do 2 things at once. Trying to strengthen 2 weak groups at the same time. And you realize that that's extremely hard to do. It is really hard to strengthen 2 groups at once. Because all of Bat's moves in this sequence are dual purpose. He is strengthening his group while weakening mine. My moves are pretty almost neutral in the sense that if I strengthen one, I'm weakening the other because he's going to go in that other direction, right? So when I strengthen this side, he weakens that side. I strengthen that side, he starts to weaken the other side. And so we see that he's driven a really solid wedge in between my 2 groups and just simply played a pressure move to surround, once again, the wall that did literally nothing for me. So this was me just trying to make some shape and make a base for myself. In return, White got to surround this even more. And while I thought this was still alive, White has a lot of strength to attack other parts of the board. And so the second tip I want to show you guys has to do with starting new groups and starting invasions. So I'm trying to start a new group on the lower side to try to get some more points, right? White decides to play over top. Because the stronger these top stones get, the weaker these stones get. So it makes sense. I, of course, do that, and he goes up. I'm a little worried about shape, right? And when I really shouldn't have been, this has a potential eye right here, which would lead into an eye right there. So I shouldn't have really been super worried about this group. But even though I was, okay, right here. I feel like a lot of people get into this situation, a lot of intermediate players, where White descends. Almost everyone, at least every person that I've played against that was around my rank, descended. And learned from Dwyrin that this is a very Q-ish thing to do, and not something you'd want to do. Because when you go down, you're essentially saying, I'm willing to make 10 points and get surrounded on the outside for doing it. Which is actually kind of a horrible strategy, global board-wise. So let's watch what happens. Bat Atari, right? White took. I needed to make a base, so I did that. White simply kicked and came over top. And so now we see that I've made like 9 points. And White is going to be able to come over top of this group and get good center control on the rest of the board. Moves as simple as maybe this one. That's probably not the best move. But I mean, White doesn't really even have to do anything. If White plays in some other part of the board, whatever. I'm just playing random things right now. But let's say like Black tries to like come out and do something with this, like it'll be very difficult. White will just naturally be able to surround a lot of points, whereas Black's not really doing anything with his stones. So if you're given the option, so way back here, if this sort of situation happens to you where you have to make a choice, right? Like, do I go down and kill off these stones? Or do I just solidify and have center access? Pick the center access. Even if white goes down here, this is Sente. And this looks a little better, right? It's a little bit harder for white to just completely press you down, because if you do, he makes cutting points. You can take advantage of those, right? Even this, you can sort of use that and get some strength up here. Something like that. But that's a little better, right? At least gives you some options, to break out towards the center and use it if you sort of play high. So the second tip, in conclusion, would be to, if you're getting attacked and you have an option to either make a small base below or run out to the top. Unless there is no opportunities for you at the top and you're gonna die if you do that, unless you need to make a base. It's more effective to play such that you have more strength to give you more flexibility. And the last lesson I learned was to always make sure your group's actually okay. I was under the assumption that this black group was alright and I could do some other things, when in actuality I left some big holes, which actually allowed him to kill off the group. And necessarily the moves aren't important, it's more the principles that matter. This was just me trying to live, but his shapes were too good to let me do that. And after this I resigned, because this didn't have any eyes that were real, except for this one. But that's only one. So I was under the assumption that this giant group, just because it had a lot of space in the middle, was alive, when in fact it wasn't. So you have to really be careful, and that's another risk you run with having a weak group, right? You always have to keep that in the back of your head, is this actually safe? I thought it was safe, but it wasn't. And that let it be captured. And from that point on I resigned. So I learned some really, really cool stuff. Probably the most important was the wall bit, because from that weakness, that one weakness, it turned into something that I had to carry with me throughout the entire game, and it sort of ruined all my plans, for the rest of the game. So the three things that I learned, just to recap, were: think about where you're making your walls and how you're making your walls. If you make your walls in Gote, you give your opponent a chance to nullify it. If you make a useless wall, where your opponent already has something that can't really be attacked that strongly, then what did you make it for? And it's going to just be a weakness that you have to carry around. Second, don't automatically let your opponent just come over the top of your stones and just make a small group in the bottom, like I did over here. It is inefficient, it gave me 12 points, and it gives your opponent way too much. Third, always check your weak groups and make sure that they're actually okay before you play another move. Or if you're going to play another move, make sure it's Sente and they have to respond. Otherwise, they might take advantage of serious flaw and wreck all your plans forever. So really, really cool stuff, really cool ideas. Looking forward to playing another game with him sometime in the future, and hopefully my OBS settings will be good then, and we'll actually be able to hear the words straight from the horse's mouth. But awesome game, awesome time, and really learned a lot. So I hope you guys got a little bit out of this game. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, support, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys on the grid.